let's also discuss one important aspect of this battle, and that is Zulfiqar. We commonly know that Zulfiqar, the sword of Imam Ali alayhi salam, was given to him at the battle of Uhud. When his sword broke, basically the ahadith tell us that when the Prophet was abandoned at Uhud and he saw the companions fleeing the battlefield, the Prophet told Ali, "Oh Ali, defend Islam, defend me." Imam Ali alayhi salam told him, "Ya Rasulullah, I don't have a weapon, look at my sword, it broke." So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him, "Here is my sword, Zulfiqar, go and fight." And Imam Ali alayhi salam ferociously fought that day. They had not seen him fight ever in such a way, because the mushrikeen were this close to the Prophet at Uhud. They almost killed him. So Imam Ali, with the last of his energy, he was defending Islam. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, finally protected the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Jibreel came and he called out into the skies, "La fata illa Ali, wa la sayfa illa Zulfiqar." There is no man like Ali, and there is no sword like Zulfiqar. This is commonly narrated at Uhud. However, we also have narrations that this happened in Badr. So which is it? First of all, let's look at Zulfiqar. What is Zulfiqar? Many of us think, it's a sword that belonged to Imam Ali alayhi salam. But any idea where the sword came from? Jibreel. When did he bring it? So let's examine the word Zulfiqar. Linguistically, Zulfiqar, the word fiqar, is describing its shape. It has well-defined edges, basically incisions in it, and it was split. That's why it's called Zulfiqar. In one hadith, Al-Imam Sadiq alayhi salam was asked, why is this sword called Zulfiqar? The Imam alayhi salam says, سُمِّيَ ذُو الْفِقَارِ لِأَنَّهُ مَا ضَرَبَ بِهِ أَمِيرُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَحَدًا إِلَّا افْتَقَرَ فِي الدُّنْيَا مِنَ الْحَيَاةِ وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْجَنَّةِ. Allahu Akbar. He says the reason why it's called Dhul Fiqar, see, fiqar comes from the root word faqr, which means to be denied something or poverty. The Imam alayhi salam says one meaning of Dhul Fiqar is that anybody whom Imam Ali strikes with this sword, they will be deprived of life in this world and heaven in the akhirah. That means if Imam Ali's sword touches someone, they're dead. We don't have someone who was wounded by Dhul Fiqar. Right? If the sword of Dhul Fiqar managed to strike someone, he was dead. So he was deprived from life because he would die. And if you get killed at the hands of Imam Ali, you think you're going to heaven? You must be the enemy of God. In another hadith, Al-Imam Sadiq alayhi salam says, the reason why technically it's called Dhul Fiqar is because just like the spine in Arabic, the spine that runs through your back, what do we call it? Al-Amud al-Faqari or al-Faqarat. He says just like there's a line that goes down your spine, this sword actually had a line that would go through it just like the spine that you have. And then the Imam alayhi salam also describes, that it had a silver ring attached to it. So, what's the origin of this sword? We have a number of hadiths that tell us about the origin of the sword. One hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam states that when Adam came down from paradise to earth, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala equipped him with the sword of Dhul Fiqar to protect himself from the evil ones, the jinn and the ins. So this is a type of sword that can even protect from the jinn and from the shayateen. And then the hadith states, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the sword Dhul Fiqar, it was written on Dhul Fiqar, my prophets, one after the other, continue to inherit this sword, warding off the enemy, حتى يرثه أمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب عليه السلام فيحارب به عن النبي الأمي. Until Ali will inherit the sword and he will use it to defend the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ibn Abbas, by the way, in one hadith, in describing the verse وَأَنزَلْنَا الْحَدِيدِ, we have brought down iron. He says one application of this verse, أنزل الله آدم من الجنة ومعه سيف ذو الفقار. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had this iron sword of Dhul Fiqar come down with Adam, so it actually came from paradise. So this is the origin of Zulfiqar. It first came with who? With Adam alayhi salam. Then prophet after prophet would inherit it until Jibreel brings the sword and he gives it to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So the one who owned the sword wasn't Imam Ali. Initially it was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then the Prophet gave it to Imam Ali to defend Islam. So the common story we've heard about Uhud, but Al-Imam al-Baqir alayhi salam in another hadith, he says before Uhud, at Badr is when Zulfiqar was actually used for the first time in Islam. But the difference is, at Uhud, the one who made this divine call, La fata illa Ali, la sayfa illa Zulfiqar, was Jibreel. Whereas at Badr, an angel by the name of Ridwan, maybe he's the keeper of paradise, because we have hadiths that state the keeper of hell is Malik, Khazin al-Nar, and the keeper of paradise is Ridwan. That's the name of the angel who's in charge of paradise. In any case, the hadith says at Badr, there was an angel by the name of Ridwan who called La fata illa Ali, there is no young man like Ali, wala sayf illa Zulfiqar. And there is no sword like Zulfiqar. So this actually, happened a number of times. Al-Imam al-Rida alayhi salam in one hadith, he says that we the Imams have inherited the sword. Al-Imam al-Rida says, I have the sword with me. And it will continue to go to my descendants until the Mahdi ajjalallahu ta'ala faraja. He will have the sword with him, and when he reappears, he will have the sword of Zulfiqar with him. There are a number of hadiths about that. So any questions on Zulfiqar? By the way, many Sunnis will try to reject these hadiths. That Jibreel said, La fata illa Ali, la sayfa illa Zulfiqar. And they claim they are fabricated, the narrators are weak. Ibn Taymiyyah really was big on this. He's like, this is fabricated, I don't accept any of these hadiths. And they accuse some narrators like Isa ibn Mihran, because he narrates some of these hadiths in their own sources. They're like, yeah, he was a Rafidi, he liked the Ahlul Bayt, so we can't trust him. But subhanAllah, we have so many hadiths in Sunni books that talk about Zulfiqar and Jibreel making that statement. And basically, At-Tabari narrates this, Ahmad ibn Hanbal narrates this, Ibn Hisham narrates this, Al-Khathami narrates this, Ibn Abi al-Hadid narrates this, Al-Hamawi, Sibt ibn al-Jawzi. So our question to our Sunni brothers is, when you have tens of Sunni scholars narrate this hadith, if this was a fabricated hadith, why bring it in your sources? Tens of sources? Come on. This in fact is an insult to these scholars who included these hadiths. Over 10 prominent Sunni scholars have mentioned the hadith of Zulfiqar in their books, and you reject it just because it has a virtue for Imam Ali alayhi salam. So this is well founded in hadith, and really there is no excuse for rejecting them. Any questions so far?
Was this Zulfiqar present in Karbala? I was going to say, is it with Imam Mahdi right now?
Yes, it's now with Imam al-Mahdi. Yes, all the Imams had it. But Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, when he left last time to the battlefield, he gave Zulfiqar to Imam Zayn al-Abidin. He gave him his silah. And he told him, you are entrusted with this weapon. You need to give it to the Imam after you until it is given to al-Mahdi. Ajjalallahu ta'ala faraja. So now it's with Imam al-Mahdi, yes. And we have, I think, hadiths that state Shaitan, after the reappearance of the Imam, he will be killed by Zulfiqar.
So there's no sightings of it?
No, I mean, it was with the Imam, they kept it with them. And after that, people really did not have access to it.
After Imam Ali.
So, after Imam Ali, he gave it to Imam al-Hassan and then Imam al-Hussein. Maybe only some close companions would see it, but generally speaking, no. It would not be seen publicly.